Today is May 20th, and this is an update of my strip butterfly garden that I created in an area that used to house tree stumps for my preschool students to jump off. It started very small down the middle, and each year I expand. That's why I still call it the strip garden. The first year I just threw in a bunch of wildflower seeds, so they were all annuals, and it was pretty messy and weedy. So over the last couple of years I've added perennials, a lot of them from my Buy Nothing group on Facebook. I keep talking about that because it's been great, and it almost forced me to just kind of try new plants that I wouldn't have bought myself maybe, and just see how they perform in the garden. So full disclosure and real life things, I was supposed to have all this edging in place by this next video, and I also talked about mulch, but I have not put it down yet. And yet it's funny because as things are growing in, it doesn't seem like I need it as much, but I still want to do it this year to mulch around and prevent weeds. So let's see what's happening. The only thing to bloom so far are purple things, and these are those new alliums. They're called Purple Sensation, and as I mentioned in my butterfly garden sandbox video, I bought these because all around them are the evening primrose. They're yellow, and I thought they would look really nice together. It would break up the yellow, but yet it's going to probably be a couple of weeks. I don't even see buds yet. Let me see. I don't really see buds on these guys yet. They get pretty little pinkish bulbs. It almost looks like the flowers are going to be pink, and then they're yellow. So they're pretty at all stages. But usually I think in about 2 weeks they should bloom. So I'm hoping the alliums stick around. But again, it's my first year, so it's always an experiment. That's the first thing. I say purple things because I'm going to turn around quick behind me, even though that's another area. Let's see these bearded irises. These were given to me in the fall from a friend, and I think they're just beautiful. Let's see. So now I'm learning that purple things bloom in May. So irises bloom in May, and the alliums that I have bloom in May. Later I can show you a clip of my wisteria tree, which is kind of going by now because we had a big bunch of rain, and this is when it starts to fade, but a few days ago it was at its peak. Today is May 14th, and it's earlier in May than most things bloom in my garden. But I wanted to show this wisteria that blooms around Mother's Day every year, because by the time I do my next video it might not be here anymore. It kind of blooms in stages. This is the front of it, and it's just starting to fill in now as the blooms. It's one of my favorite trees in my yard. You can see it's like light lilac to dark purple with yellows in it. It's still just filling out the little buds. So I'll step back again so you can see it. This is the front portion of it. And then the back portion of it has been blooming for a while because that gets more sun, or stronger sun against the south wall. Can you see how big it is? It's amazing to me. It came with the house. It's probably 70 years old, and I love it. Let's look a little closer at some of the blooms. They're still filling in, but the smell is amazing. There are bees around it all the time. It's my favorite time of year. I see in the back there, the leaves are coming in, which means it's time for the blooms to kind of go. But then I started a baby one over there with a vine, probably about 4 years ago. And that one actually bloomed first because it's against that south wall. The blooms all come in first, and then the leaves follow. Anyway, I'll turn back around, go back to this garden, and one of the purple things in the front there is, it's called mountain bluet, and I've said Centaura on the earlier videos, but it's Centaura, and some people call it cornflower. Now that bloomed about 2 weeks ago, so it's starting to turn inward a little bit, and it's at the end of its bloom. They're really striking flowers if you haven't seen them before. And even though those leaves are yellowing, I think it's because we had so much rain. They actually have really attractive leaves that stick around. This is another one right there. And in another video, I had talked about moving them up front. They used to be at the back of the garden, but they are the first bloomers in May, so I wanted to see them. So I moved them all around. Let me see. Here. I moved one there. I divided them. And I moved one there. So there are 4 plants in the front. And this one is budding up now. They're pretty buds too, I think. When they open up, they remind me of thistles. And this is another one. So that was the first one to bloom. But they do last a while too. And even after 2 weeks, as it's changing its shape and kind of going inward, I still think it's very pretty. And it does attract a lot of pollinators. Now, speaking of pollinators, I know I talk about butterfly gardens, but in this area, this is May, so we do start to see usually yellow tiger swallowtails, and we see eastern black swallowtails usually in May. But we don't see monarch butterflies here until usually July, or sometimes, if we're lucky, the very last week of June. So that's why the flowers really don't come out until then, because the plants I picked are to feed the butterflies. So I'm talking about other things in this garden. Let's see. These are those 2 little sedums that I transplanted from my daughter's yard. And if you'd seen last month's video, they are looking a little more normal. So I'm happy about that. I think I had overwatered them. The next one was John Creech sedum that I had taken a sprig from the other garden so it could spread around. This one I've talked about before. This is Monkshood, and that blooms closer to November. Oh, sorry, a bumblebee just banged into my phone. They are kind of the shape of foxglove, which I just learned after all this time that foxgloves are May blooming flower. So I think I'm going to plant them, maybe winter sow them next year, and I'll plant them in the back strip there, which I will talk about in another video. This is another butterfly bush. It was actually rescued from my daughter's house. It was just a little branch, and last year it did bloom for me. This is the 2nd year, and it's doing really well. It's like standing up straight and tall, which I'm kind of happy about. And that's a dark purple butterfly bush. At her house, it was allowed to grow very tall, so it's probably about 8 feet tall at her house. I don't think I would let that get too tall here. I did not cut it back this year, though, as I usually do with butterfly bushes, so I wanted it to be a little taller and see what happens. This is Rue, this little shrub, and it usually has, it's kind of like bluish green leaves. I think that it's pretty on its own, but soon it will also shoot up, and it has like very tiny little yellow flowers that attract pollinators. But this is a host plant for a couple of different kinds of swallowtail butterflies. We get a lot of eastern black swallowtails here, but there's also another type, and I don't want to mispronounce what it is, but they also lay eggs, and the caterpillars eat the roux. Next to that, over here, is Salvia. It's purpley blue, and it looks really like the buds are coming up. It's really great. I bet by next video, next month, it'll definitely be in bloom. And I'm excited about that because this looks pretty good too. See how straight up, and it's just nice and tall. And this is its 2nd year. Last year, I bought it at the nursery, and it was kind of sad, but that's okay. The baskets are back again in this garden as well, because I have put in a few annuals, which we'll get over there in a minute. But this one still has just a little lavender sprig in there that I'm hiding from the squirrels. Since the last video, I transplanted in this spot a small spirea. This is other spirea right next to it that I need to either give away or decide what to do with. But I put the spirea in this area because I expanded the garden from, it used to be right here, and now it goes to here. And there's an airplane. So I'm filling in this area This right here is a swamp milkweed. Last year I planted it after winter sowing it. It's going to be purple or pink. I received the seeds from a friend. Last year it just put up one stem with the leaves. So this year I expect this to flower. So it's exciting to see that. Next to it is Echinacea coneflower that I planted last year from winter sowing as well, from my own seeds. And that's doing well. Next to it are two fennels. And I don't really use the fennel for eating. I just use them as host plants for, again, black swallowtail butterflies. Next to that is another coneflower. I kind of wanted to fill in this area. The coneflowers look so great in the other butterfly garden. The first year they start off kind of short, but boy, they really grow. So it'll fill in this whole area at one sometime. Over here, I transplanted a chunk of orange butterfly weed from my butterfly garden. So I did that all this month. And in this area this year, until I see what happens with these perennials and what height they're going to get this year, I have Nigella, Love in the Mist. I'm going to plant a bunch of them over here that I winter sowed. And they supposedly have, you know, foliage kind of like those fennel. And the fennel gets really tall, and then it goes to flower. So it would be nice to have something tall and like flowy, flowery over here. But I also still haven't added any zinnias yet, which I usually add soon. I have them in little cups, getting a little bit bigger before I put them in, and the squirrels attack them. That's why I need them to be a little stronger. Over here, let's see. And these two baskets, just as in my other butterfly garden, these are cosmos. One is a rubenza from Floret flower, and the other is apricota. And that's a new one for me this year. It's supposed to be peachy with a tiny like ring of maybe light purple. But I've seen different shades, so we'll see what happens with that. I thought it would complement, maybe like a lighter version, and complement a lot of the purples in the garden. Right here is the lilac bush. That was a sprig from my daughter's garden. I've talked about the fact that this used to be the end of the garden and I wanted a tree there. But now that the end of the garden is over there, I'm going to put it right in the middle at the very end of the garden. And then I won't have to move it again. But that will be the fall. So coming back here, anything exciting? This is one little cosmo that I stuck there, and it's kind of hidden from the squirrels, so I didn't put a basket on that. I still have spaces here where I moved them out in Bluet. And on this side, that I am going to add sunflowers to this year, I think. Because in the middle here is Heliopsis. It's called fall sunflower, and it's very tall and yellow. So it'd be nice to have two height things next to it. This year I am going to, I have to go in there and look at it. I'm going to pinch them soon, but I was waiting for that second stalk. See, right here? This is just starting, so I think if I go in and pinch this, it might keep these from growing so tall. And I mean, I'm not even sure, but I'm going to say 10 feet tall. So it really gets to be too much. It's the only thing that's super tall in this garden. So, and that was given at the Buy Nothing group, and I didn't know. So, and it has expanded. This is probably like 3 times more than I had the first year. It was basically one little clump. And it's pretty, but it's the tallest thing here. So the next tallest thing that will show up is right here is cardinal flower, Lobelia. It does get very tall too, and it's kind of interesting. It's like one big stalk of like red flowers, open one by one. I'll add a photo of that. The hummingbirds love it, so I love it. It's supposed to be perennial, but I lost my first one that used to be right next to, in the middle there, right next to the Monkshood. So they were 2 tall fall plants together, or end of summer, but it didn't come back. So I winter sowed some seeds that I had saved from that plant, and it looks like it's going to come back this year. So I hope it does perennialize and come back again. Okay, next to that is Yarrow. It's a red-orange yarrow, and it does have buds, so that means probably, I'm sorry, I can't focus so well. Let's see if I can focus. Probably by next month, will have those flowers. But this is one of those plants where I planted it at the back of the garden because it's supposed to be 18 inches tall. But I don't know about you, but it looks like it's about 8 inches tall, 10 inches tall. So this might have to move in the future. But the color is so bright, and it's next to fennel right here. So I think it'll kind of show through. Fennel gets it's very bushy now, but it gets tall and lanky. So I think the color, you'll still see the color right through it. But it still might be something I have to move. We'll see. Or it could still just be establishing itself. So I don't know. So other than purple things that bloom in May, I have these cute little columbines. And for me, columbines are another thing. It's the first year, well, last year I planted them, but it was only like 2 inches tall. This year, again, they look about 8 inches tall. And I was told that these get to be 18 to 24 inches. So I planted them there. So maybe they'll move in the future too, but they're early enough spring that everything's low. So you can see them and they're pretty. But that's the only non-purple thing that I see growing this year. Oh, there's one more little sedum here too. I can show you that I took a piece from my daughter's garden. I like to steal things when I'm over there. Oh, here's that other little sedum that I have too that I don't have a name for it. I have that in the other garden too. This is going to be Veronica royal candles that came from the sandbox butterfly garden. I transplanted it because it was hidden. It hasn't put on too much growth. It's getting there. The one last thing I wanted to show you is over here, because I misidentified it in the last video. See this plant? This pretty much, I believe, is Coreopsis, yellow Coreopsis. I thought I was transplanting red Campion from my butterfly garden last month. It was just starting to grow, so I dug it up and stuck it over here and protected it with a basket. But as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, those are not the right leaves. Those are, looks like Coreopsis. So when I did my video this morning of the sandbox butterfly garden, I was right. The Campion is over there still, and it's hidden. And I'm calling it Campion. It's Campion, like champion. So I'm sorry about that. For me, it just looks like Campion, like a French word. So anyway, that's what's happening in the strip butterfly garden. And I'm excited that hopefully in June, I'll say it again, the mulch will be in, the edging will be in place, and hopefully a lot more blooms. But I'm really excited. It really does come in July. And August, September is also really pretty. So again, thank you for watching.